Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving from downtown. The three, steps back, crossover, puts up a three. Rebound James, second. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is the city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
Cleveland, this is for you.
What's up, Cavs fans? Welcome to the Block the Shot to Stop. I am Kevin Lynch, rolling solo today with just a quick episode, believe it or not about Cavs basketball. We had some very big news in our podcast world this week, in the online streaming world even more so, that Playback TV, our trusted partner who we have loved working with, is going out of business, for lack of a better term. They're closing up shop as of this Friday. I was rocked by the news, wasn't really planning on doing anything on the podcast about it. But I had a handful of people reach out to me like, what does this mean for your podcast? Do you still have a podcast? Are you guys doing anything? So I wanted to come on here and first and foremost say, yes, we still have a podcast. We'll be able to adjust on the fly to at least put out the episodes every Sunday and Wednesday, as we have planned. We're actually recording one later tonight with a very special guest. But so the podcast itself will go on. What we lose is the ability to do the game watches and everything. That was awesome. It was starting to pick up a little bit of steam, but will unfortunately no longer be able to do those. And secondly, other than kind of address that, I want to put that aside. Yeah, with the podcast still going on, I was going to just come on and talk about Playback for a little bit, because we've mentioned it in passing on this podcast many times, dozens of times, because we were super excited about the partnership with them, the ability that they gave us to watch live games with our friends from all over the country, all over the world, and interact with each other while we were watching the games. It was a phenomenal thing. I mean, we also used it to do, record the podcast, do some live episodes, but the biggest thing about it was the ability to watch the games with your friends, no matter where you were. I mean, both Skylar and I are not located in Cleveland. So it was a cool thing to be able to watch the games together instead of just talk about them afterward. But so anyway, the news with Playback is that, yes, they are going away as of Friday. There's lots of rumors as to why. Like, I'm not going to go too deep into any of that because I don't know. I've heard some of the rumors. If you're active on social media and you know about Playback, you may have seen some of them. The only thing I'll say about it, which is completely unsubstantiated, just my opinion, working in the business world for 20 plus years, is when a small player like Playback enters the market, shows rapid growth, then typically the big players notice and they don't like it, and they worry that something like that could disrupt their ecosystem, aka their money. And while I don't know that that's what happened with Playback here, that would be my guess, because if you can watch games on Playback, then you don't need 7 different streaming services to just catch NBA games nowadays, or baseball games or football games or anything like that, even though they didn't have the NFL quite yet. So that would be my best guess as to what happened. Again, completely unsubstantiated, but in the end, at least right now, it doesn't necessarily matter. The biggest thing is that we unfortunately will no longer have a Playback channel as of a couple of days from now. And, but we will still have the podcast. We will still be around. And the other thing I was going to address before I just talk about some other things with Playback is our buddy, Brandon Towers, aka B-Tow, who is a member of The Land on Playback and also works for Playback, was instrumental in getting that thing going and seeing the growth behind it and helping us, especially with it. Like, he was getting on social media, very apologetic, felt terrible about what happened for all the creators out there. And like, Brandon has absolutely nothing to be sorry for. We've all been eaten up by the monster that is the U.S. economy. So Brandon, thank you for everything that you did for us and that Playback did for us. Taking a step back, just in case you haven't heard us talk about it or didn't join our Playback channel before, Playback was like a virtual game watch. Basically, you log on to the Playback channel on your phone or your iPad, you cast it to your TV, and you come to our channel, the Cavs game's on. And most likely there's some people in there that are talking about the game either live, what we call go on stage and actually chat, or in the chat, like you're in the chat. So you basically get to like send messages back and forth to people, kind of like a group text, but you don't have to know the people. They're just other Cavs fans looking for people to watch the game with and talk to about it. And it was fantastic. And Playback gave lots of people, including us, like who are creators and smaller creators trying to establish themselves, like the tools to be able to do to put, your content out, but also the advantage of being able to do it with the live game on in the background. And it was an awesome platform. It is a real shame that it is going away. I don't think it's going away because of lack of desire by people to want a playback or something like that. But, it is a real shame. But the one other thing I want to do is tell a little bit about our experience from the beginning with Playback. So I can't exactly, actually I do now live on air. I remember how I met the guys on Playback. It was in the Cleveland Cavaliers Reddit channel, which is heavily monitored and is very easy to get kicked out of. And they got kicked out of it shortly before we got kicked out of it, simply for putting up, I think we put up some polls, like questions like, hey, what do all of you think about this? We're going to talk about it on the show, or what would you rather hear about? So we got kicked out for that. They got kicked out for, I'm not sure, but I'm sure something similar to that. And so they created their own Reddit channel, and I saw it and started, messaging with them there. What is Playback? Ended up creating an account, going on, watching games in the live. I watched a handful of games. And then there was one game where, there's a handful of guys that are running it. They're all buddies that I understand since high school from Cleveland. And there was only one of them, Wes, who's been on the show a couple of times, was on that night. And so he was just kind of talking to the wind, and it was early in Playback. They're still trying to figure it out. And so I sent him a message like, hey man, you want some company? Like, I'll come up on stage and talk to you about the game. And so I came up and ended up spending like a second half talking to Wes and everyone else that was in the chat. And, he asked about our podcast because my Playback name is the Block the Shot to Stop. He didn't even know my real name. So told him a little bit about that. We ended up hitting it off. I, spent most games the second half of last season watching them on Playback on the Land's channel with those guys. Got to know not only Wes, but B Tao, as I mentioned, who also works for Playback, but Jack, Max, Big Rig, bunch of other people, and we'll read them all off. But and had a great time, even in the worst of times. Where especially the Cavs getting eliminated, I watched those games on the Land with those guys, and like I've said on the podcast, one of my favorite quotes from Ted Lasso is, there's something worse than being sad. It's being sad and being alone. And when you watch something on Playback, you were never alone. You got to celebrate with people, you got to commiserate with people, you got to get to know people, like, which is in this kind of world that we live in now. It's harder and harder to meet people IRL in real life. So you look for ways to meet people virtually, and especially people who have a strong similar interests as you, such as being huge Cavs fans. And so that's kind of what we did. And I loved it. And Brandon approached us this summer about creating our own channel to play the games, to record the podcast and everything. And we were 100% in. We loved it. We loved the platform. We worked through the kinks of it, and we're having a lot of success with using it to create content, whether it was the full podcast or the shorts or anything like that. We were having like just a great experience. But so I think in all, I want to kind of start to get towards wrapping up by saying thank you to Playback, thank you to B-Town specifically, thank you to all the guys I mentioned at the Land and everybody else over there. It was an awesome community, and I've already talked to those guys. How do we keep this community going even if Playback's not around? Hopefully they come up with some ideas. We'll happily jump in and help wherever we can, because it was an amazing community they created. And I really enjoyed being a part of it. And I'm honestly bummed that it's coming to an end. But I think it's temporary in the sense that I don't know if Playback itself will ever come back. And if it does, I don't know if it'll come back the way it did. But the next thing's coming. That's going to be some version of what Playback tried to do, because people don't want to have to, spend their entire paycheck on all these different streaming services just to catch their favorite team. People want to be able to interact with fellow fans without, leaving their house, especially if they live away from the city that they're a sports fan of. I am a huge Cleveland Cavaliers fan living in the suburbs of Chicago. Like, it's hard for me to find people to chat about the Cavs with. And so something like this is coming. The virtual game watch, the being able to interact more live during a game with fans. I think Playback was 100% onto something. I think it had all the potential in the world, and that's why it's such a shame that it's going away so quickly. But again, I think the next thing's coming. I think let's try and keep the Cavs Playback community together, and whatever I can do to help with that. Same with Skylar. I know that he wants to see it keep going. And then when the next thing comes up, which hopefully is Playback coming back, but if not, something else, let's all jump to that and try and recreate this community and even make it bigger, because it was a lot of fun. But anyway, just wanted to jump on and do a few minutes about Playback and about the future of the podcast, which we addressed. We're not going anywhere. We just have to kind of adjust our model a little bit. We will be back with a live episode on YouTube tonight. The audio will be out tomorrow. I guess I'll just spoil it. Luca from Real Cavs Fans is coming on to kind of deep dive this team versus last year's team through 25 games and find out, if we can dig up anything beyond the obvious, what the problems are with this Cavs team and how they maybe can course correct here. We're sneaking up on mid-season. As always, follow us everywhere. Unfortunately, for a couple more days on Playback, but going forward, YouTube, anywhere you get your podcasts. We're on all the social medias, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, X, all of our great community over on Blue Sky. Interact with us on any of those, and we'll keep this going. We'll keep it going. It's a bump in the road, but it's not a crater. So we'll keep moving forward and keep making content and keep our fingers crossed that this Cavs season is going to turn around and we can have a lot happier conversations. So for the missing Skylar Webker, I am Kevin Lynch. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We will see you tomorrow. And as always, go Cavs.